minutes. One thing I want to add, all the nominations named on that meeting minutes, they're not elected, but they're willing to serve our board, so their name should be on that meeting minutes. Another things I would like all the people's voting information on that, who voting yes, who voting no on that meeting minutes. And other things, I think there's we need a corrections on the board secretary election. I think there's a 407, that's not 707. And I think that need to be corrected. And the reason why I trying to do that, I suggest to do that is because the meeting minutes is kind of our school board. And we should document all the key informations. And any nominations, any motions, whether or not is favorable or not in favor of our decision, that should be documented in that meeting minutes. And another things, I think our board should treat each board members respectfully and equally. And I appreciate, first of all, congratulations for Ms. Wade, Ms. Austin, and Mr. Marley. They're elected as board office, and I also appreciate they're willing to serve our board, and congratulations to them. And in the meantime, I think all nominations, no matter they're elected or not elected, should be listed on that meeting minutes, because not everybody willing to serve the board, and they are step forward, willing to serve the board for other board members and share the leaderships, and willing to work with all other board members to create collaborations, to build up trust. So their effort, their willingness should be appreciated, should be recognized. And so that's why I think they should be, their name should be on that. That's all my comments. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, Lauren, or Mr. Wong. Just for clarity in the board, just so you're aware, Mr. Wong did ask me this question in advance of our meeting tonight, and so that all members are working with the same information. If I can find it here. I want to make sure that everyone has access to exactly the same information.
I think the email.
Yeah, it wasn't in the email. I don't know if he responded to us, but I want to make sure that it's
I got an email.
I just think it is important that everybody have access to the same information who we're going to stop with.
I think that's February 11th email. That's 2/11/2023 chair notes. That's the title of the email.
Yep.
Right?
Okay.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
What did not happen is connected to that minute of the board. They document what did happen in the meeting, not what did not happen. So that's related to one, their status as a record of decisions made by the board. In simple terms, this means that once the vote is cast, all members, even those who do not vote in the majority, accept the decision as fact and operate respectfully of one another, regardless of their individual votes. In my opinion, this is of particular importance in a small local elected body such as the school board. The end result of the vote was that myself, Brad, and Amy were elected to serve as the office see adding that, see possibly considering that it makes sense to list each member's vote after each vote. But I would argue that not only is it not necessary to list what did not happen in the meeting, but it is disrespectful of the outcome. And in the case of the officers, is the business practice in our community. Members of our community have some members they support and some they do not, as proven by their votes in the polls. If we as a group of 7 adults who are elected to a position cannot treat one another with respect, I'm not sure we can expect our staff, students, or community can. As such, I strongly discourage inclusion of the visible and unnecessary language in the official minutes of the board. Those are my 2 cents. I will invite comments at the meeting, of course, as I'm obliged to do, if we as a board can discuss the matter. I hope my thoughts are helpful to yours. That is the end of my email to Lawrence, so thank you for allowing me to share this thought. I do think we, as a board, beyond this specific transaction, need to consider the ramifications of including things that did not happen in our minutes as we move forward. So if we do this, we're really setting precedent of opening our minutes not to a factual record, but to the argument or the disagreement between members over any particular item. So I would encourage discussion around that or any other thoughts you may have. Would anyone like to share?
I agree with Mr. Wang regarding this issue. And moreover, and actually I also asked this question on Friday and about this package. And moreover, I think whenever there's a split votes, we should document who voted yes, who voted no. And because the school board members should be held responsible and for their decision. And so, yeah, I think that's very important. For example, who is against releasing the packet to the public, who support to do so, and should be all be documented. And just like all the other politicians, if you go to any Wikipedia for any Senate or congressman, congresswoman, whoever, and their opinions and their voting record are all there. I think we should do the same. So the public will know, who they would like to support next time. And so the board can best represent the public.
Well, we agree, Dr. Kent, that's what my note to the long one, that it would make sense to vote about how individuals voted. If we do that, if we start to do that, we'll need to do that on every item that the board voted upon. And that would be a change to our minutes, so we definitely can take that action. And I think that makes sense for exactly the reasons that you cited. The question is if we want to list things that were not part of the outcome. So if we want to go to the depth of saying this person nominated but was not accepted, that's something that did not happen. It was not an outcome of the meeting. So there's a distinction there. Where do you say these voted yes, these voted no, these voted abstain, or these abstained from the vote? That's a document of votes cast. Mrs. Altman.
And our staff are best served by a board that is united. And I believe that creating a record of division and a paper trail of times when the board has disagreed will be a divisive force in the board and won't serve our students and our staff.
And Charlie will look good for a referendum.
This is true.
So I guess I'm not clear on what we're discussing. My understanding is there's one error of the vote.
Yes.
So, and I think that has to be changed because there's an error. And then my other understanding is when we voted, we actually didn't just vote for one person on vice president and secretary. There were 2 names that were put forward. So there was actually official voting that was done by two different groups, if I recall correctly.
Right. The question is, I am questioning what benefit that serves the students. That has to be the question we always come back to. What benefit does it serve our students to list the people who were not elected?
Okay.
And I'm not sure that be a case for that. So I think that's where I'm a little fuzzy. There are really 3 matters to clarify. One of them is, do we list the names of the individual voting, and that would be really for all matters going forward on our minutes. One of them is if we need to correct that item that was noted, and we'll make note of that. And then the third one is really if we want to distinguish between voting for things that did not happen, that were not outcomes. Yes.
I move that we correct the vote for the secretary in the previous minutes to reflect 4 versus 7, or 4 to 7.
To correct it now.
Out of 7.
Okay, can I get a second for that motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Schott. All in favor of correcting the incorrect number listed for the vote as secretary? Can you raise your hand? Indicate yes. Okay, 7-0. We will correct that, please, in these minutes. We'll move on to the second two items.
I still have something on comments on these issues. Can I
We're
do that?
still going. That's just one part of 3 that we're going to vote on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're okay. This is a lot of Robert's rules, a little bath in Robert's rules
Okay,
tonight, so
okay.
hold on with us, okay? The next one is, do we have a motion to include a voting record for all votes, the name of the member and their vote, yes, no, or abstain?
I motion.
A motion from Mrs. Mumford, do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Dr. Yin. Okay, all those in favor of including a specific vote tally at the end of every vote we make, please indicate by saying yes, or motion.
When I have some comments
Oh, yeah.
before, can I do that? What's the best time to do that before we're voting for that?
So, yeah, we're voting right now on what you recommended.
No, yeah, and
Yeah.
once we vote, I cannot say anything, right?
Okay,
It's
go
pretty much
for
done deal.
it. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Go
that's
ahead, Mr. Munn.
Yeah, that's back to your email. I really appreciate that during the weekend you reply my email. That's really I appreciate that. And the things regarding these all names, I think that's because we are not voting for our personal issues. We are not vote for ourselves. We vote for the communities, and we should represent them and vote on behalf of them. So whatever we vote, it should be public information. Anybody should know who vote for what, and they can understand each other better. And another things regarding SU concern, I think that's valid concern if you have put everything in there and divide votings, and people may be interpreted as a divided board. But that's another thing. That's whoever, somebody may interpret that as a divided board. Somebody may think that's a good way to build up trust and utility, united, because each one know each other better. Because right now we have 3 new members and old members. When we work together, it's very good opportunities. Everybody show up with their opinions for particular issues. So we know each other better, so we can build up trust, and eventually we can build up collaborations. Not only for our board, also for the whole communities. Because you don't vote for somebody, after these things, everybody know each other much better. So together we can build up the trust and more understandings, and we can build up the unified, we can work together for something. And another thing is our board, our duty is document whatever we did. And when we have nominations, we have motions, and we vote for that. That's our actions of our board. That should be fully, faithfully documented. So everybody know what we did. That's what we should conduct our business, transparent and accountable. So people with more information, how they interpret that, that's their each one have its own interpretations. What we should do is give them all informations, not partial information, not the selected information, all full information, and they can decide what they want to do, what they interpret that. So that's my review from that question. That's why I suggest to put everything in there. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second right now, specifically on the matter of placing individual tally after every voting item with the member's vote. Yes, no, or abstain.
May I just follow up a little bit with,
Sure. I'm not sure that there's a vote again, so I mean, you can,
I just one comment for like whether we need to have a 7 out of 7 vote to show our united board. I agree with Mr. Wang, I don't think it's necessary, and people have different opinions, and it's totally normal, like people disagree sometimes, so like especially, for example, during the pandemic, mask or no mask, you always, people disagree, no matter, what decision you make. And so I think it's totally okay. This is a kind of the foundation or essence of the democracy. And so I really appreciate that people can have different opinions. And so really, just that.
Yeah, not anybody here are anything.
Yeah, I know. I just want to clarify, we don't have to feel bad when people disagree.
Right,
Right,
we're,
okay.
we're with you.
So all
I've never
those in
felt bad.
favor of voting to list the individual tally of votes after each vote in our minutes going forward, not correcting February or January's minutes, unless somebody feels strongly about that. I would suggest we do that going forward. All those in favor, please indicate aye with a show of hands, please. Okay, that motion carries 7-0, Mrs. Chu. All right, so the third item that we're discussing within this is where we're going to draw the line between things that happen and things that do not happen, that we don't vote on. So what I mean by that is if we have a agenda item where we review something and the board is divided and we vote 4-3 or we vote 6-1 or whatever the vote is, we would say the action carries, right? And then we list everybody's individual votes beyond that. The question is, we're going to list content that does not happen. So, for example, in your notes to me, Dr. Yin and Mr. Wong, and I believe actually Mrs. Lumbert, I could be mistaken, I want to give you credit if you asked this question. Okay. Somebody said, well, I would like for Mr. Martley to have been nominated. Well, Mr. Martley didn't accept the nomination. So that would not be information that we would include in the minutes because it did not happen. We did not vote upon it. Mr. Martley declined the nomination. That's the distinguishing line, is if it's up in its conversation and we don't vote on it, it should not belong in the minutes. And that's an important clarification to make as we go along with different agenda items for the year. So it's kind of an odd thing to vote on, but okay, Ms. Lumbert.
Well, I think the question, at least my understanding, I agree that if it's just a nomination that they don't accept it, but we did have two items that were actually voted on. For both vice president and secretary, those were actually voted on items. So I do think the line is if it's a vote, it does get included. If it's just like you said, the other nomination, I don't see why that is my personal opinion.
Okay. Anybody else, any comment? I can tell there's nods at the end of the table. Anybody else, that way we're drawing the line. If it is something that is a voted item, that is where we would list that in our minutes as a vote for that item.
Do we need to move and vote on this, or do we need to vote on amending the policy, which we're going to be meeting about shortly anyways?
I don't believe our policy is in conflict with this. It's just a matter of interpretation. We can review that at policy committee, but I don't believe it is. I don't really know that this is even a voting item, perhaps. Clarification among the board on what we're going to do going forward. Everybody feel okay with that? Okay. So, the purpose of not making Mrs. Julian rewrite all of these minutes from our January organizational meeting, is it acceptable to the group if we vote to approve these minutes with the edits of the secretary vote and the edits of the officer votes, those who were voted for and against, and then we do not make her go through the full minutes and add the voting tally for every other item on the agenda for that particular.
I think they were all seven.
I
Seven or
agree.
seven.
Yeah, is that,
So,
well, we're gonna do it for all or none, so like, going forward, even a 7-0, it's gonna
Right.
be every member with their vote
Yeah,
next.
she does not need to go back and add all seven names every time.
Correct, yeah, is that all right if we feel good about that going forward? Go ahead, Mr. Wong.
Can I clarify? So your proposal, we are not changing this January meeting minutes, just
No.
We are changing the organizational minutes
We
to
will
reflect the
change the-
winners and the losers.
Yeah, we'll change the contested votes of the organizational meeting only.
okay.
And we'll change the one number count on the secretary position that you noted.
Okay.
Everything else will leave, and we'll start the vote tallying, beginning with these meeting minutes for February, if everybody is comfortable with that. I don't see a lot of benefit of having all of our minutes be edited. Are we okay with that?
Will she be doing a tally if it says 7 to 7? Like, what's the purpose of her doing it on a 7 to 7?
It's consistency, and it is not highlighting the divided votes. So it's just consistent practice in that case. We want to be consistent. Okay, so if we could, please, I need a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Actually, I already have a motion and a second. We're ready to vote. Okay, so we have the motions in the middle of that, right? We started with a motion and a second. I think we did. To approve the minutes for January 9th organizational meeting, understanding that we will make those 2 corrections as noted. All those in favor of approving those, please indicate with a show of hands. Motion carries 7-0. Mrs. Julian with those corrections noted. Let's move on to item 3, approval of the minutes of the January 9th, 2023 regular board meeting of the Board of School Trustees. Can I get a motion, please? Moved by Mr. Wong. Second by Mrs. Mumford. Any changes or corrections to the regular meeting minutes? All those in favor of approving those, please indicate with a show of hands. Motion carries. Mrs. Julian 7-0. Moving on to item 4, approval of the minutes of the January 9th, 2023 annual finance meeting of the Board of School Trustees. Can we get a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Marley.
Second.
Second by Mr. Schott. Any questions or changes to the finance meeting minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of those minutes, please indicate with a show of hands. Motion carried 7-0, Mrs. Julian. Moving on to academic achievement, special recognitions, junior, senior high school, West Side, way to go.
We have Mr. Schreiner here to recognize students from the high school.
It's okay to stand?
It
Yes.
is.
All right, thank you. So we periodically have a West Side Way to Go award for students in grade 7, 12 who just are nominated by teachers or staff members because they're good citizens. They're good people, and they really embody what we hope all Red Devils are about: caring for others, taking care of each other, and just being thoughtful people. So we have a certificate that we'll give to everybody, and some brief remarks from the teachers or staff members who nominated. So our first certificate tonight is Xingmian Zhang, and if you'd come up, and I will read. I'm going to give you the certificate. We cheated. We already took the picture. So you have to. So I just want to read the remarks, and this is from Mrs. Forbes. And she wants everybody to know that she's nominating you because you're a consistently hardworking student, and Xingmian is diligent about using her translator to define unknown words, so she thoroughly understands what she is reading and what is expected of her. So you don't leave anything to chance. You're very thorough about the work and the language. And Mrs. Forbes says you're also a pleasure to work with, and she really enjoys your pleasant, friendly attitude towards her and everybody else in the class that you come into contact with. And you don't hesitate to ask questions whenever something needs clarification, and you're consistently polite and respectful to all when doing so. And so your work ethic and perseverance are inspirational to me. This is from the teacher, not just to kids, but she's inspired by your effort. And so she really works well with everyone, and she just appreciates you very much. So that's from Mrs. Forbes. Okay, just stay right there. And then Xingmian is a freshman, and then next is Cammie Anderson, who is a sophomore, which I think I gave you the wrong one. See, I had them all in order once. Now my organization's bad. And I just want to read some remarks about Cammie from Mrs. Sheffield, who is her counselor. And she says Cammie was a new student in August, and she has done a great job of settling in and finding her place at West Lafayette. The transition was not easy at first, in which she admits, but she really persevered and has continued to grow. And Mrs. Sheffield says that you've adjusted so well. In fact, at the beginning of this semester, and I didn't know this, when we had a new student who was also anxious, kind of worried about being here, Mrs. Sheffield asked Cammie to show her around and hang out with her. And Cammie immediately put this student at ease and took her into her friend group, empathizing with her because she'd been in that position before, and making friends with her without missing a beat. So West Lafayette, we think, is a better place because of Cammie. Cammie Anderson is a student here, and we just want to take a moment to recognize that. So thank you very much. All right. And next is Mia, don't call me Amelia, Russell. See, I swore I wasn't going to. Now, believe it or not, a couple of years ago, Mia had won another award similar to this. So pretty soon, you're going to need an agent to help sort out all the offers you're going to get. But a senior now, hard to believe, Mrs. Bonnell, who is in our office, nominated Mia. And here's what she had to say. She said, I always see her talking with other students and not ones that you would expect, just anybody. She is kind to everyone, and I mean everyone. There was a student that there was a concern about harassment or bullying with one of her siblings, and she just happened to be waiting with him in the hallway to speak to her counselor by chance. And Mia took time to talk to this student and very kindly and maturely asked him about what was going on. And they had what seemed to be a really meaningful conversation and formed a relationship. Sounds like. And she just has a way, Mia just has a way of bringing out the good in people because she is such a good person herself. I have seen her bring snacks in for students who aren't able to provide for their own, and she would give you the shirt off of her back if you needed it. So according to Mrs. Bonnell, I can't think of anyone more deserving than Mia, and I would agree with those, having seen you around for so long. So congratulations, Mia. All right. And should we, yeah. Okay, we've got them. We've got our picture. No, I think we're good. But I forgot, I didn't bring my, so thank you, girls. And next, we have, I want to bring Mr. Smith up, and he has a few members of the recently concluded season for debate, and they had a very successful season. I asked Mr. Smith just to talk a little bit about that and introduce students. And nobody has to make any more speeches.
Keep that in mind. Well, why don't the four of you come on up? Oh, I can? Okay, thanks. Yeah. These four students are Henry Mayer, that's our team president, and Krisha Shaw, and next to Krisha is Minnie Liang and Lyra Chen, 3 seniors and a junior. Mr. Schreiner asked me to, he wanted to make sure, and I'm not sure if you know this or not, but he wanted to make sure that the debate team was recognized for all of, not just your hard work, but also the success. We placed 4th in the state last weekend. Very successful end of the career. And these, of course, are 4 of our most skillful and successful debaters. But when he asked me about doing this, I wanted to seize the opportunity to sort of get on the Way to Go award train. And these are 4 students that I thought, we have 49 students that competed this year, 49 on our team. And when Mr. Schreiner mentioned this to me, these 4 individuals just came right to mind, and I want to make sure they got special recognition because they embodied more than just about anybody else on our squad our team motto, which is what matters most this year anyway. And they do. Aside from the success in rounds and how easy they are to coach because they catch on fast, and if they don't catch on fast, they work hard until they catch on. But they do what every coach would want a student to do on their team. They're kind, they're cooperative, and they're very committed. I've spent many hours with them in my room and on school buses and at tournaments all around the state and in some cases beyond. So these are 4 students that definitely deserve a way to go. Thank you. congratulations.
We'll get a picture too. Okay. Can we get another picture? Yeah. You guys want to grab a picture?
It's the end of 21.
Yeah. Awesome. Congratulations.
It's a lot of Saturday sunrises.
Yeah, these guys are typically the ones who get back on a Saturday after basketball games are done. So everybody's been to games, and these guys are just rolling in from wherever they've been. So many, many, many hours, a lot of success for them, and many years for Mr. Smith, who's just a wonderful role model for everybody, and we get better all the time.
Thanks.
So thank you. We'll get a picture.
On to new business, item 5, mental health therapist position overview, Mrs. Levy.
Sit, stand. Okay, thanks.
Be comfortable.
Okay, thanks. So it's not pointed straight up in the air.
Don't have to project too terribly.
Yeah, we'll see. I might be able to project my voice. Well, thank you guys for having me tonight. It's all good. As you can see, I'm Miss Levy. I'm the West Lafayette Community School Corp mental health therapist, and I am excited to get to tell you a little bit about my position this year. As you probably know, this is a new position. This is the first year that this position's been available and filled. So it's very exciting for me in the mental health field. I want to show you guys a little bit. I feel like I would be remiss to not mention what our school counselors do. And I am also a former school counselor, so I'm a licensed school counselor as well as a mental health therapist. And I work with all the school counselors in all 3 of the buildings. And this is just a little bit of what is on their plate. And I put this up here. I don't do any of these things, but this is what our school counselors at our 3 buildings do. And I just want to make it kind of known how much work they do already do for our kids' social emotional needs. And just even those first few things, like they're every day working with kids, doing guidance lessons, teaching them all of those soft skills that we talk about. They do short-term solution-focused therapy on a daily basis. They do crisis management on a daily basis. They do small groups. They're part of many, many teams that support our kids. Again, this is just a small part of what they do, but this kind of leads to my position that and the role that I've filled this year, because I feel like this is the job of the school counselor and they do it great. But as we all know, our kids have more needs than a school counselor is able to meet at times, just that they're limited to how much time they can spend with their hundreds of kids, obviously. The creation of the new mental health therapist position. Now, I wasn't here when it was created, obviously. I've talked to some of the counselors and just about what led to this position, and we know a lot of it is just the increasing mental health needs of our kids, the increasing awareness of the mental health needs of our kids. As we all know, the pandemic didn't help out much mental health needs of our kids. And I've been in the school throughout the whole pandemic. I was working in schools, so I've seen a lot of this. I've seen the anxiety shoot through the roof, and depression and family conflict, and just all the needs that were already there have just increased to another level. And so I think just the continued discussion of the school corp, how can we meet those kids' needs above and beyond what our school counselors are already doing an excellent job at doing. And so that was in response to that, and also the needs in our community. As I put up here, there's an average wait list for children and adolescents in our community if they want to get therapy is 6 months. So you have a kid in crisis and you find a mental health therapist in the community, and it's okay, 6 months from now we can do an assessment. Not ideal, obviously. So that was what led to my position becoming available. And this is just a little bit of background. I won't go over all of it on me, but like I said, I'm a licensed mental health counselor associate. I'm also a licensed school counselor. I have 3 kids of my own who have been through this school corp, and 2 are still in the high school. And I've been in the mental health field for over 20 years now, since the year 2000. The specific role that I meet for the school corp is as an individual therapist, and I do work in the elementary, in the intermediate school, and at the high school. So I split my time, primarily 2 days at the high school, a day or 2 at the intermediate, and a day at the elementary. Our school counselors, again, are the ones who know all of our kids. They kind of have the pulse of our kids. They know where the biggest needs are. So they're the point person for me. So I get all the referrals for individual therapy for kids from the school counselors directly. And that's the only place that the referrals go through. And that's set up because they know the families, they know the kids, they know the needs. If kids are in crisis, they know it. So they're the ones who also interact with the parents. They'll take all those concerns, talk to parents about initiating contact with the mental health resources in the community. Once the school counselors have had those conversations with the families and the students, then they will make referrals to myself. I will reach out to the families at that point. I have an intake set up with the parents, so I meet with them either in person or virtually, go through just all of the concerns they have about their kids, their students, their child, and then I will start meeting with a student. Typically, I meet with them once a week. It's actual therapy, so I actually get to see them, depending on the age, because I have little 5-year-olds that I don't meet with for an hour, clearly, but up to the high schoolers I meet with for a longer period of time, so anywhere from half hour to 50 minutes once a week. I schedule the times with the kids, and I have shared space in some buildings, but I have a designated space in all 3 buildings. And the kids come to me, and I'm able to do therapy with them. And it is set up to be short-term mental health therapy, so that eventually the goal is these kids will be able to get outside therapists in the community. But in the interim, I'm able to start some therapy with them, so they don't have to wait for 6 months if they're in crisis. And then I coordinate, if they give permission, I'll coordinate with the therapist once they move on to a new therapist on the outside, so that all that we've worked on can be a pretty smooth transition, and they can continue to get care. I've also do some small groups on different social emotional topics. I collaborate, as I said before, with the school counselors on a regular basis. I communicate with the teachers, parents, other stakeholders, other therapists in the community, just various people that I need to coordinate with. I'm able to do that. I'm looking at the statistics here, so I think this is already outdated, but when I first put this slide up, I had seen 45 kids already for individual therapy. And like on an ongoing basis, I'm getting continued referrals, and then some of them, you know, they move on to outside therapy, and I'll get some more on my list. I've had about 49 students participate in small groups, so these are additional kids. These are the kids who I'll do like groups on anxiety or organizational skills or anger management skills, those type of things. So I've done some groups, and I've done primarily individual with the kids. Topics that I have addressed just so far this year with our West Lafayette kiddos. As you can see, it runs the gamut of just about everything out there. Lots of depression, lots of self-harm, lots of suicidal ideations, lots of anxiety, just emotional regulation, especially with the little ones, learning how to manage their emotions, grief, trauma, conflicts that's come about in their life, just stressors, academic stressors, school problem-solving, school issues, focus, attention, impulsivity. So these are just things that I'm able to address with these kids. So I didn't mention at the beginning that this position was funded. It's a pilot position, a mental health therapist, and it was made possible with the grant funding from the ESSER grant funding, which was the COVID relief funding for the schools, as far as my understanding, right? Okay. Okay. So that's what has funded my position this year. And so our goal, and me being here, is just to collect as much data as we can and see what kind of impact this position can make on our kids, and just how we can meet our students' needs the best going forward from here. Okay, that's all. Sure.
Mr. Rogers, by the way.
Yeah, right. It's a good quote.
How does small groups get formed? Do they come to you?
Those are through the school counselors as well. I've done them in the elementary and in the high school level, and those have directly come from the school counselors. They also do small groups, but this is just an extra person who can do additional small groups and meet more needs. So, yeah.
Any other questions for Mrs. Levy and Mrs. Austin?
Are you finding that you're able to meet the needs in our buildings, or do you wish you could be cloned most weeks?
I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody that works in education would want to be cloned. I think I have certainly met needs that have not been able to be met in the past. And again, it's just not practical or doable for school counselors to meet and do individual therapy with kids. And I don't know exactly, but I'm pretty sure West Lafayette School Corp is one of the few school corps in the state that has a mental health therapist that's actually through the school corp. So it's a needed thing, and it's not always there. Could I always have many more kids? Yes. Yeah. So, but I at least get to take that core group that has the highest needs and focus in on them. And since I don't have 600 kids, I have, the 45 or 30 at whatever given time. I mean, I really get to know those kids and really get to focus on goals with them. And we're going to do therapy, even if it's on a, short-term basis. So,
Thanks.
yeah.
Dr. Yin?
So I just wonder how the referral system works, and I can imagine for the elementary schools, and the kids have their homeroom, right? So one teacher will have like 20 something kids.
Yeah.
And so they have very close relationship, and the teachers see the kids every day. And so if there's any problem, it might be easier for the teachers to identify the problem. And but for high school students, and yeah, my kids are 9th grades and in 9 and 7, so they are relatively new to the high school system. So I know they have counselors like for the whole grade or something. I haven't figured out the whole system.
Right.
But in that case, I feel it's quite different from the elementary school.
Yeah.
Then the counselor may not know every single kid very well. Kids, keep
Sure.
changing classrooms, right? So I wonder in that case whether, so how the referral system works. And another concern, it will never happen to ours, but in the news, sometimes there's problematic case, so, yeah, like all the other kids know, but somehow schools just miss those problematic, the kids who have problems. And so just in general, what kind of system can help us to be proactive and to find the problem, solve the problem?
So I'll back up with your first question, and I can answer this from my role this year, and also my role as a school counselor for years, and as my role of working with the school counselors. So you're correct that there are a lot of kids per school counselor, but in my experience, and Courtney Murtaugh is our intermediate school counselor. She's here tonight, but I think she would agree that yes, the teachers do know these students, especially in the younger grades, probably better than most people in the schools, but those teachers communicate directly with the counselors. When they see needs, they go to the school counselors. Then the school counselors, from that point, can decide what level of needs there are. And kind of to answer your second question, I think that's why I wanted to also address just show all the things the school counselors do. We kind of work on a tiered system. So the school counselor's job is to meet the social and emotional needs of all of the kids. And that is where they're proactive, right? So that's where they're going into the classrooms. They're teaching lessons on emotional management, on mindfulness, on anger management, conflict resolution, bullying, all of the things, and they do that on a regular basis. They also, when a teacher maybe says they're struggling, this student may be struggling with something, the teachers at that, or the school counselor at that stage might say, okay, you can put them in a small group for this. And it's kind of like a tier 2. They're a little bit more concentrated. And then if those students need even the next level of care, that would be when the school counselors would contact and talk to parents, and then the referral will be made to me if a parent agrees to have the child in some sort of therapy. Because the parent needs to be involved completely at the level I'm at, for sure. So I think that kind of answers your last question. I mean, we do a lot of social emotional teaching of our kids. I think probably more so than a lot of people realize. Like it is in the schools now, and it's more and more every year. And I think our school corp does a great job of trying to be proactive in meeting those needs and starting at a young age of kindergarten, so that they've gotten used to these lessons and this education as they get older. And then when more needs come up, the teachers talk to the counselors, or parents call the counselors, and then eventually it would come through me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, may I ask one
Yeah.
more question? So, I wonder whether it's possible at all, like in the future, to host some sort of a workshop for parents and to address some common issues, especially if you see some common issues.
Sure.
And so, yeah, it's very, I think, in the probably high school and the junior and high school level, the teenagers, and when kids are younger, it's pretty much know everything about them, and mostly. But when they are getting older, you don't necessarily know everything. And And also, I think for some like immigrants, for example, me, myself, I came here like 20-something year, 22 years ago, and to the U.S. I didn't grow up in the U.S. school system, K-12 education system, so I don't necessarily know how the school here works. And so, yeah, it kind of be helpful to for parents to know more about their kids' school life and the common coping skills and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak for the school counselors who that's kind of their primary role, but I'm pretty sure that there is a fair amount of that. I know the junior high and high school, actually all the counselors across the board, I know that they have had parenting nights available and on certain topics. I know they have resources that you can go to through the website to get certain things. So yeah, I agree. Like the parents is another level of needs that I do think, and again, I'm not the expert. I'm not the one to say exactly how that works, but I do know that there is some of that goes on. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
And a fantastic job. What do you think is the demand? I mean, if we had 3 or 4 of you, could we keep all of them busy? I mean, what's kind of the wait list with this setup, which is a fantastic setup, do we
Right.
currently have in our schools?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes, I think it's been like for sure the first semester has been, let's see what this position looks like and let's work out all the kinks and see how, it's gonna work and how it's gonna entail. And so, am I pretty full? Yes.
Okay,
Are there more needs in the schools? Yes.
okay.
So that's kind of my, yeah.
Do the counselors, I wasn't clear on your presentation,
Sure.
are the counselors able to still do individual also?
So
or-
they do, school counselors will always do like brief, short-term counseling, just because that's kind of the nature of the job too. So yes,
Okay.
so they definitely, there are, the higher needs kids certainly do some, like, so let's set some immediate goals. What can we do what better coping skills can we have? So absolutely,
Great.
just very
Not the same.
brief
Yeah.
and short term, but yes, they're very qualified to do those things as much as they can. Yeah.
Now, did I see this as a 2-year position, or is this only a 1-year? It is, so with this kind of pilot trial is the rest of the school year and then 1 more after that, and then it's determined funding after that, is that correct?
I had to, I'm looking.
No, you're fine, it's a lot.
Up to they start getting it.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
One of the things I'm gonna be talking about is the Secured Schools Safety Grant, which is a bill that they've proposed that would provide, $11 million more dollars. No, I'm sorry, it would be 30 million, I believe, for mental health resources across the state, so we could find.
We gotta keep going on.
Absolutely.
Okay, one more question. Which school at this point are you seeing the highest, like, where is most of your time being spent?
I would say it's equally across the intermediate and the junior high school.
Okay.
Yep.
Helpful, thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yep.
Accepted for the replacement of the gym floor at West Lafayette Junior Senior High School. The notice for bids was published in the newspaper following state code on December 13th and December 20th, with bids being opened publicly on January 10th. The notice was also published on the school corporation website. Fanning Howie assisted with that notice and the bid process. Bids were submitted by Cincinnati Floor Company and Jack Lurie Floors, with the overall lowest bid submitted by Cincinnati Floor Company in the amount of $169,121, which is in line with the expectations for the cost of that replacement. The final bid tabulation is included in your board packets, so please approve the recommendation to contract with Cincinnati Floor Company for that gym floor replacement so that the work can begin in the spring, please.
Okay, can I get a motion, please? Moved by Mrs. Austin. Second by Mr. Schott. Okay, questions for Mrs. Cronk about the gym floor? Anybody have them? Go ahead, Mrs. Mumford.
Will the gym be closed, as I understand, from March through May?
Is that correct, Mrs. Ryder? Yes.
What events, I mean, luckily basketball's over, will there really be anything that has to be moved from there, or it's just PE? Are we planning on doing graduation inside or outside this year?
Inside.
We're not
It'll be
talking,
done.
it'll be done, are we discussing outside like the last 2 years?
We have a plan because we've done it for 3 years.
Oh, 3
We
years?
plan to do it inside. We don't have any reason to think.
Any further questions about the gym floor? All those in favor of approving this gym floor recommendation, please indicate with a show of hands. That motion carries 7-0. Mrs. Julian. Moving on to item 7, disposition of outstanding checks. Mrs. Cronk.
Yeah. Business office is requesting permission to dispose of outstanding checks that were written in calendar year 2020 and are outstanding as of December 31st, 2022 in accordance with State Code 51110.5, which outlines that checks that are more than 2 years old are not valid anymore. Please approve this recommendation as submitted.
Motion by Mr. Marley,
Second.
second by Mr. Schott. Any questions about the disposition of outstanding checks? This is something that we do every year. All those in favor of approving item number 7, disposition of outstanding checks, please indicate with a show of hands. That motion carries 7-0. Mrs. Julian. Moving on to item 8, online summer school. Mrs. Roth.
You received a copy of the contract. This is senior high school administration requesting permission to partner with Indiana Online Academy. And this is for summer school and is a repeat of what has been done in the past. At this point, we would recommend that you approve this partnership so that students in need of the credit recovery have this opportunity. The program runs from June 5th through July 26th.
Let's start with a motion, please.
So,
Moved by Mrs. Austin.
Second.
Second by Mr. Marley. Just to clarify, Mrs. Roth, this particular version of online summer school is not the only summer school option. This is just the first one that we see.
correct.
Generally, we see multiple other options as the spring goes on.
And I believe that in the past has come to the board in the next month.
That's
This
correct.
is coming this month because of the contract being prepared this month. But the typical arrangements for, I think, the elementary is anticipating Jumpstart, and then senior high would have social studies and those kinds of options.
Right.
That would come next month.
That would come next month.
Yes.
Yes, so just so everyone's clear, this is just one piece of the online summer school pie that we're talking about tonight. Are there any questions for Mrs. Roth about online summer school through this part of it? Mrs. Mumford?
So, I'm trying to understand, because mostly I've only heard about the Achieve Virtual Education Academy. So what are we doing, like what classes are students taking with this Indiana Online?
Let me pull up what is offered. And I will do my best to answer this. Packets were sent out to parents at the senior, at the
Right.
high school. And so I'm going to pull up that packet.
I was
That
gonna
way
say
we-
I'd gotten it for my kids. And
Yeah.
I've only seen them talk about the Achieve Virtual Education Academy, but I don't have kids in every grade. So that's why I was
That's the first.
wondering, do we have some, I just was trying to understand the difference between the two programs.
I do know that one program is kind of a first choice option because it's the less expensive free
Okay.
option. And then the other one is if that first one does not meet the needs.
I see.
So there would be some courses, I think, for example, maybe a foreign language that couldn't be offered in one, but that could be offered in the other, those
I
types of
see.
things.
Okay. And then I did have a question. In looking in the past contracts, it looks like that we've never charged parents, but my understanding is the cost has not changed. It's actually gone down. But there's now a charge for parents to do it.
I think it's an administrative fee, and we
Okay.
did look back at prior contracts.
Yes.
The prior contract did not have that administrator fee, so that's a vendor decision.
Okay.
I do want to explain, summer school works in a particular way.
Okay.
When students take summer school with one of these entities, they actually become their students.
Okay.
So it's their administrative fees, their rules, everything that they abide by.
Okay.
So we are simply the contract that they have furnished, that would be a boilerplate contract that they would enter into with any Indiana school district offering summer school through them. They have chosen to add that $50 administrative fee. They file the paperwork to collect all of the tuition for summer school that would be available to them for reimbursement. So it's not we would then later pay them. They charge that $50 administrative fee that covers their costs to then file that paperwork to recapture anything they could get for offering students the chance to be their summer school students.
And I will say you do, as a potential to take this, and they do register online in that school corporation to take
And they
this class.
record the credit, and then the credit has to transfer over, and we have to they go through that whole process.
I see.
Yeah.
So in the past, like the 250 and this one where it's saying it's 185, we're never paying anything to
No.
them. This is they're getting it from the state,
I believe, yes. Yeah.
getting refunded for that.
Reimbursement.
Yeah.
Like we did for ours.
Yes.
Okay.
We have to teach the courses. Our people have to teach the courses for us to seek the reimbursement.
That makes sense.
Any other questions on this? Okay, all those in favor of approving this recommendation regarding online summer school, please indicate with a show of hands. That motion carries 7-0, Mrs. Julian. Moving on to item 10, the corporation time clock, Mrs. Cronk.
Okay, we're just going
Nine.
Oh, so sorry. How could I possibly forget that one? Item 9, Safe Harbor for after-school care contract renewal, Dr. Reiner.
I have to say, I had it out of order myself earlier because I wrote my notes down, so it's interesting that you did the same thing. So we're currently in an agreement with Safe Harbor using our facilities to provide childcare services on site before and after school at the elementary school and after school at the intermediate school. And the contract renewal agreement was included in your board packet. It's my recommendation that we continue the partnership with Safe Harbor so that the organization can continue to provide supportive services to our families.
Can I get a motion, please? Moved by Mr. Shaw. Second by Mr. Marley. All right. Questions about the Safe Harbor before and after school contract renewal? Mr. Wong.
Well, a quick question regarding this. It seems to me it's very hard for us to find some contractors to do these things, partner with us to do this locally. Is that right?
This is a group that has been using our facilities. Is it 3 years or more?
Longer.
About 3 years?
Longer.
Longer, much longer.
Yeah.
So,
It's they were with us pre-COVID, so it's been at least that long.
yes.
So we don't have any other contractors or some other
There-
vendors,
there-
whatever you call that.
Yeah, there are no other
Partner.
contractors working within our schools right now, but there are other opportunities for after-school care that I believe several go to the elementary and actually pick up kids and take them back to their facilities. So this is the only one within our schools.
Great.
Any other questions? Mrs. Mumford?
I have some questions. I know this has been a discussion with the change of schedule this year and parents trying to get in. I wasn't clear, is the capacity because of our facilities? Like we're telling them we cannot let you put more students in the room? Or is it their staffing that has limited the capacity?
It has limited it, Mrs. Mumford, due to their staffing, and there's actually been a change in their approach. What was happening in the past is if you were first to come in and reserve a spot, you didn't have to necessarily use that spot. You were just reserving that spot. So we had families that needed it daily and regularly, and they were on a wait list because they are an accredited, licensed, accredited or licensed provider, and they have to have a certain ratio. And so because not everybody was coming consistently, there was not the ability to staff in a way that allowed for the wait list to come down to zero. They've since, I believe they started second semester, or they're going to start next year. Next year, they're going to reverse it where if you get your spot, then you're paying consistently. And then if there's a day where it's free, instead of guaranteeing for the ones that hold a spot, it's guaranteed for the people that are using it regularly, paying regularly. And then if someone wants to check and see is there availability on a certain day where they just want to use it one day or 2 days in a month, that if it's available, then they can use it. So I think that should help with the wait list issue. And I did get from Ashley Justice information that I believe they have it now down to where there's not a wait list at this time. It's great news.
That is
Yes.
very good news. Do you mind sharing about the study group? I think this is very exciting.
Yes, I'd be happy to do that. I might ask Mrs. Roth, she's facilitating for that,
Yes.
but I am participating on it, but I want to give due credit to Mrs. Roth. So,
And I do know there were some staffing issues at the beginning of the year. They relied heavily on some new students, and since those students had yet to arrive, there were some issues.
I will add to that. We've had a talk with Dr. Chang's, or the First Lady. She allows me to call her Kay, so I will. But we've talked with her, and she is even working with trying to find ways that maybe there could be housing for the students to stay longer, or maybe get there earlier. So that could develop too,
Great.
where there could be that consistency for our families. So we'll see how that develops. But it's just one more way that they're trying to partner with us, and we're trying to partner with them to add some consistency.
No rock left unturned in that one. In terms when it comes to after-school care, we have picked up all the rocks.
So the study group, it's incomplete, and it is precisely that. It's a study group to better understand the problem and better understand possible solutions. And we met actually on our snow day. We met virtually because that's happened to be the way that it worked. And it was parents from representing Willis and Willess as well. And then our two principals were kind enough to join us. And what we decided just from initially chatting was that we would do a survey to better understand the problem. So that will go out to the parents from Willis and Willess. And what we're really trying to understand is what do you currently use? Well, first of all, do you have a need? Do you have a need, or is your need covered through your family, your household? Or do you have a need for something outside of the household? What do you currently use? Because as we discussed, we kind of came to the understanding that even those in the group were not aware of all the possibilities. So just bringing that to light, because there may be things that we ourselves are missing. So the study group is seeking to understand what are the needs, how are the current needs being addressed, and then what are the ideas? Who's interested in coming along to understand what possibilities exist? Safe Harbor is one option that we currently do offer. They come directly to the school, but we do have some others that come to the school, transport kids to their facilities, and a variety of things. So really seeking to understand the problem, and then also awareness, we understood was a key portion of that. So once that, we hope to send the survey out before the end of the month, and then get just some information back. So we've kind of got some ideas and some next steps. And the survey would also include opportunities for someone to say, I'd like to be more involved. I'd like to have some kind of, I'd like to be a part of the conversation. So that's where we are with the study group. Infancy stages, probably looking to conclude by the end of this year, so we could get information out to families for next year. And hopefully, at the very least, increase awareness of the possibilities and have some good discussion about improvements that could be made.
Thank you, very exciting. Appreciate your time. Any other questions, Mr. Wong?
Yes, I have a quick question. So when you say end of the year, is it academic year or just calendar?
The academic year.
So by the end of summer or something?
Well, yeah, I would like to, that way everybody's concluded by the end of May and hopefully share out with families.
And what is the next meeting time you guys already scheduled?
I've sent out something today to kind of line that out. We're looking towards the end of February, beginning of March.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
It's not a fast-moving process, but it's a process nonetheless to try and address
Moving,
it.
that's good. Thank you, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Dr. Yang,
Yeah, I really appreciate that you
study group and even reach out to the whole community to give collect survey and response, and I think that would be really helpful. A general question I have been having is like, are we open to having some classes in the building? Because right now all the options actually and besides this safe harbor, all the other ones, for all the other ones, there will be a transportation issue, kids will be bused to other facilities. And, but I heard, at least when my kids are younger, when I hung out with those parents and the people wish to have, for example, chess class just in the building. And I just checked that chess class offering again, except for our school, and almost all the other school districts have the chess class in their building. For example, Crown Deck and Burnett Creek or some other school, I don't really know, but nearby schools, and they have the chess class right after their school time, and the kids can stay there and for an hour also, then parents will pick them up. But for our school, and the time for our the location for our chess class will be in the temple.
Temple
And
Israel.
it's not that far, but when the weather is not that good and the kids have to walk out and things like that. And then besides this, there are some other things I heard, the community are being willing to offer. For example, some people can offer Chinese class or some other dancing class, after school, and really can have a lot of extracurricular opportunities for kids to attend. And people there are willing to offer those, but they just don't have the location to do so. And I wonder how likely we can be open to some other options, and maybe just provide the location, and then people can pay themselves to those instructors. And so I don't know, maybe there'll be liability issue or something which is beyond my knowledge, but sounds to me there are many options. Maybe from your survey you can get more.
So you're aware, we do have a facilities usage process to where someone could request. I know we have scouts that come in our buildings and other organizations that come to do these kinds of things. And there is a process involved. So that is available to anyone who would want to go through that process. And then I also think that we hope, what I'm envisioning for part of the survey is, are you interested in being a part of the solution? And I do know from former principal experience, I wouldn't be able to open up every room in my building because, Mrs. Kronk is a business teacher. She might be working in her room and those kinds of things. And we do know as well that, as a former French teacher, I would have had French club in my room after school. But I do know that there are spaces, and I know our principals always try and work with the community members to make spaces available.
Yeah, if the teachers actually have the time or interest
if they're
to offer
interested.
some class after school, that's even better.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think we want to see who's interested in doing what and what we could possibly offer.
Thanks.
You're
Just
welcome.
to ask a clarifying question, Mrs. Roth, really what happens in the school building falls under the direction of the building principals and the process to determine what is good use of their facility. That would be where that responsibility would lie.
And they'd work closely with maintenance with regard to the facility usage form and then what availability they have. And so they're very open. Obviously, we protect the teacher classroom spaces because some of them are in there late at night working, but and that's their planning space. But having stated that, they're very open to offering those opportunities. So.
And I know we usually, correct me if I'm wrong, look to make sure we get our own activities scheduled first and foremost. If there's the math competition, the math bowl, that kind of thing, we make sure there's space for that, correct? Wonderful.
And just to be clear, I don't believe from a board action standpoint, there's any need to change any policy to allow that to happen. That already exists through the facility use and all of that. So there's no work of the board per se in establishing these after-school programs. It really does reside at the building level. Okay, so there is a motion out there for approving this Safe Harbor before and after school care contract. Has anybody got any further questions before we move on to a vote? Okay, all those in favor of approving this contract, please indicate with a show of hands. That motion carries 7-0, Mrs. Julian. Now we'll move on to item 10, corporation time clock, Mrs. Cronk.
So the business office began implementing efficiency tools in 2022, as you know, with the online benefits enrollment system and the frontline absence management system for substitutes. I'm requesting that we move forward with another item that was suggested back at that time, the implementation of the frontline time clock for our classified hourly staff to increase efficiency in our payroll processes. We currently process approximately 300 handwritten timesheets each payroll period, given a limited time due to our payroll calendar. While setup would be cumbersome because it's a very robust program, the benefits are pretty great. An automated time clock allows for less recording and calculation errors that are currently seen in our handwritten timesheets, and reports can be directly uploaded into our accounting system from Frontline during the payroll process. The time clock would also give the school corporation accurate accounting of time for IRS and Department of Labor purposes. The initial implementation and training fee for the school corporation our size amounts to about $8,300 with an annual maintenance fee of about $8,200. We would also need to purchase devices for employees to clock in and out on during the day for each building and department. That would be a conversation that I would hold with IT and the departments to kind of determine the needs. So please approve the recommendation for implementation of the frontline time and attendance application that works seamlessly with our frontline absence management application that we currently have in place.
Can I get a motion, please? Motion by Mr. Wong. Second? Second by Mr. Marley. Any questions for Mrs. Cronk about the time clock? Mr. Wong?
Can I have some quick questions? So this system, once we set up, so how many users we are going to use this system?
How many would be using the system?
Users, yeah.
I'm hearing like robotics. So like, yeah, and I don't hear very well. So, so I think because we get about 300 handwritten timesheets, we would at least have about 300 hourly staff members to use that, with the ability to even add homebounding in the future and some other like stipend type things. There's a lot of different things that we could actually add on into the future besides just the hourly classified workers.
Okay. And another thing is this system sounds like a new system. They have a real-time reporting analysis tools. You can just run
you can
whatever.
run like reports directly from that time clock program, and those reports, like I said, automatically can work with our accounting software. There's like a specific format or a template that's in time clock, the time and attendance that works in with our program. So the two software companies actually work together.
That's nice. And another thing I have is regarding every year's maintenance cost.
Yes.
So what's that include that service?
That maintenance is just like updates, and anytime we might need assistance for something, that's basically what that maintenance cost will include.
So
They always make updates to the program, yeah. Frontline owns a lot of different pieces of software, and they're always making changes, so that maintenance would cover that. Now, this is actually, and I know Ms. Mumford actually asked this question, this is the same program that we had at Kokomo, and we were actually paying 3 times that amount at Kokomo for the same software, because it is based on the size of the school corporation.
In case you have some things, they have customer service during these years for that kind of $8,000 payment.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Another thing is, so this so far 5,000 initial installation. This doesn't include any hardware, computers, or something.
Yes, that would be an additional cost. I'm
On
looking
top of
at
it.
probably 2 to 3 devices per building. Might be 1 or 2 more at the high school just because it's so big and so many different parts in it. Those are just conversations that we kind of need to have with each individual principal to kind of see what the best thing would be for those buildings.
Do you think how much total cost?
You can get computers. You can get all-in-one computers at a pretty decent price these days. So I would probably say, I don't want to make any promises here, so don't
Yeah,
like,
just a
quote me.
ballpark. I estimate ballpark.
Probably an additional maybe 10 to 15,000, depending on what devices. we get.
Hardware.
But that's the only thing you use those for, so they do last for a very long time.
That's right. That's right. Another question is, who is the custodian of our school's date, because we have lots of employee data information, name, their works. Are they stored in our
They're stored in our
common
accounting
server?
system.
Huh?
They're stored in our accounting system.
Basically on our on-site servers. It's not on their web, not on their server.
Correct. They're on our in-house servers, yes.
Okay, so that's great. Okay, thank you. That's all my questions. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any further questions, Dr. Eden?
So it's me, I'm new to this, so is that the device people will swipe their card to?
This would actually be by
Register.
employee ID, so they would log in with their employee ID number.
Oh.
Yeah.
So when they enter the building, start to work,
They would just go up to the computer and log in.
Oh, okay.
We used where I came from, we had a time clock, we had a fingerprint time clock initially, and then we were moving to this system instead. There's a lot of different ways, there's a lot of different possibilities. I'm not sure if they have one with the card swiping. That's something we could look into.
Yeah, when
though.
you go in, you swipe, go up.
Yeah, that's something we can look into.
Like,
and see if they have that ability.
companies do that.
All the softwares are very proprietary in nature, and they all do different things, so.
Thanks.
Question. So you know how much, so for example, our schools, the ballpark of our extensive workers' compensations, and this basically tracking the hours payment employees,
Yes.
right? So you think how many millions of workers' compensation will go through this, will be handled by this system?
How many hours?
Of the paid workers' compensation. Say, for example, totally we have maybe 18, 19 millions total workers' compensations, something like that, right?
Uh-huh.
For our company, for our corporation. And among them, how many percentage will be go through this system?
What percentage of our staff would go through the time clock? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, the whole totally compensations.
And,
Yeah, in terms of dollars
okay,
amount, in terms of
yes.
dollar amount.
Okay, so, oh my gosh, I honestly, I don't want to give you a number or percent that's just off the top of my head because it may very
Okay,
well be
that's fine,
wrong.
that's
So,
I'm just
that
wondering.
is something I could look into for you though, okay?
Yeah,
So
the
you want to know what percentage our classified hourly workers make up of total compensation?
No, I
Go
think
to-
I think you were asking how much time are the business office personnel working on the time cards compared to the $8,000 charge?
He's
Is
asking
that
how
right?
many dollars are.
No, no. My,
$5,000 out of our $5 million,
Right.
you know, this.
What percentage
Yeah,
of our
okay.
revenue?
how much,
Are we spending to track how much are we?
yeah, basically, how much workers' compensation goes through this system, we can track. It's kind of real time, right? Kind of,
Yeah, so this is just tracking the hours, it's not tracking the payments.
okay.
The
No, yeah, I
payments
know,
are coming
but
from the account.
go to your payroll things.
Yeah.
But in terms of compensation, in dollars amount, how much will it go through this system?
I guess I still don't understand.
I think what,
Sorry,
I'm sorry.
Mr. Wong, there's a phrase when you say workers' compensation,
I think,
it has a different connotation than their wages. Workers' compensation is when someone's injured and they receive
I think
compensation.
that's what I'm getting.
Probably I didn't, sorry if I didn't. Basically, we have some licensed teachers, faculties, full times, and these for our,
Yes,
to
and so
compare
you
with-
don't know how much we go through every month?
something like every year,
I would
whatever, just,
just have to look this.
okay.
So, okay,
Okay,
yeah,
just-
I have not been here long enough to know that off the top of my head.
The reasons why I'm not sure if we have some, this kind of system for full-time students, full-time faculties. Then we can track, because
Yeah.
this salaries biggest part of, that's something, I think. But that's okay, thank you, appreciate it.
I like to give exact numbers, I don't like to give ballparks. Yeah.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you, appreciate it.
All right, let's move ahead to the vote. All those in favor of approving the frontline time clock, separation time clock system, please indicate with a show of hands. That motion carries 7-0. Moving on to item 11, Indiana Band Association Transportation Agreement.
It's like Michelle Shakespeare.
You know, we love the Michelle show here at West Lafayette.
Sorry, I have as many things next month, I don't think. So, all right, the West Lafayette Schools Transportation Department has provided for the Indiana Band Association Spring Camp at Purdue for several years. This year's camp takes place the evening of March 10th through the morning of March 12th. The proposed contract is included in your board packets. Being that the transportation is not for West Lafayette students, we are proposing a slight increase in the charge this year to $600. And the Indiana Band Association has to provide a certificate of liability insurance to cover the use of our buses and drivers for that weekend. Please approve that contract as submitted.
Can I get a motion, please? Moved by Mrs. Austin.
Second.
Second by Mr. Schott. Question for Mrs. Cronk. Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the Indiana Band Association Transportation Agreement, please indicate with a show of hands. That motion carries 7-0. Mrs. Julian. Moving on to item 12, school bus purchase. Mrs. Cronk.
The Transportation Department is requesting the ability to purchase a 78-passenger conventional bus. Bids were obtained from the Central Indiana Education Service Center and are included in your board packets. We are asking to purchase the IC Collins bus, and it's actually the second lowest bid for two main reasons, which we are allowed if we have justification to do so. We currently contract with Tippecanoe School Corporation for the maintenance and repairs on the buses. TSD mainly uses IC Collins buses, and therefore they have the parts, tools, and expertise to work on those. And secondly, there is a short supply of buses due to the supply chain issues stemming from the pandemic. There's about a 10 to 15 month lead time, don't you think, Mr. Caldwell? Yeah. So we still have not received the 84 passenger bus we ordered in the spring of 2022 at this point. The IC Collins bus is currently being held in inventory for us, which is amazing, by the manufacturer, and we can get immediate possession once that purchase is approved, please. So please approve that purchase of the IC Collins bus at a cost of $135,209 to add to our fleet.
Can I get a motion, please? Moved by Mr. Marley, second by Mrs. Austin. Questions for Mrs. Cronk about the school bus? Hearing none, all those in favor of authorizing the purchase of the school bus given tonight, please indicate with a show of hands. That motion carries 7-0. Mrs. Julian. Moving on to item 13, donation resolution. Mrs. Cronk.
Thank you for that. I think Mr. Caldwell is super excited. So, the maintenance department is interested in donating an old maintenance truck that has been sitting in their barn and used for over a year to the West Lafayette Streets and Sanitation Department. The cost of repairing the truck would not be cost effective for the department. The city has provided free trash pickup services at our buildings now for several years, which is quite a bit of savings. Due to the extreme savings with this arrangement, we are proposing to transfer the ownership of the truck in accordance with Indiana Code 5-22-22-10, in which a transfer or exchange of property may be made with the governmental entity upon terms and conditions agreed upon by those entities, and each passing a resolution. That resolution is included in your board packets. Please approve the donation and resolution as submitted. I believe they passed their resolution last week.
Okay, can I get a motion, please?
So
Moved by Mrs. Austin. Second by Mr. Schott. Questions or comments about this item? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving this donation resolution, please indicate with a show of hands. A motion carries 7-0. Mrs. Julian. Moving on to item 14, Mrs. Cronk, you can take a breath. Moving on to item 14, the board packet pre-release consideration. This is just information we're now presenting to the board presenting to the community. As you're all aware, we held a work session on February the 1st to discuss different varieties of documents that we use as a board in preparation for our meetings, and when and what of those items should be released to the public. That conversation lasted about 90 minutes, as I recall. We went through a detailed list of all varieties of documents that we've seen over the past year, thanks to Mrs. Roth going through and documenting those for us. In addition, there were conversations then about different types of documents, when they could be released appropriately, what different barriers to that might be. The next step in this process is to move those on to the policy committee. That meeting is scheduled for February the 23rd. And the policy committee will meeting with Dr. Reiner to review that. We have received clarification from our legal counsel that indeed this does fall within the purview of the board to make this decision. We would anticipate that the policy committee will put forth some draft language about these proposed policy changes to the board in the March regular meeting. That would be presented to the board for discussion. Any changes that would give the community 30 days or so to review before the second reading, which would be in the April meeting, at which point it would become effective, provided the majority of the board agreed to that. We had a very constructive conversation, and I'd like to thank all members for participating very fully in that conversation about what information we release, and also especially to Dr. Greiner and Mrs. Roth and Mrs. Cronk for kind of helping us work through the details on that document. It was very helpful information for us to use. Would anyone else like to comment upon the work session or this process forward before we move on to the next agenda item? Okay, we'll move forward with that process. We will move on to item for board chair notes. As I have mentioned to you all, last year, this time, I became board chair in January of 2022, and every Saturday I write notes of everything that I have engaged in as a board chair. That is anything we're working on, any pending issues, any communications I've received from the community. And as you're all aware, those board notes begin as always, these notes are confidential. If you have any item you're interested in more conversation about, please let me know. I will set up a time with you. You're also always welcome to add comments to these notes if you have additional resources that would benefit the board. So that is how always these notes begin. And the reason for doing this really was twofold at the time. One, it was to make sure that corporation. So my intent in these minutes, as was discussed by board members last January, was that not minutes, but these notes to the board could be written in such a way that they would be very easily redacted, very minimally redacted, and then placed on the corporation website, so that if a patron in our community had a question or interest in the work of the board, they would have the ability to review them at their leisure without any of the pesky paperwork or legal fees. So we did that for the year. In general, these board chair notes, they're not written for public use. They're written for board members to use. Items that are redacted from those are specific names, are pronouns that could identify the person. They're anything that is strictly deliberative. They're anything that evaluation because of a perception of a lack of transparency. So it is an increase in transparency and easy access that avoids division. And the other reason is it is saving us staff.
Understand exactly what you were
Right,
saying
so you
here.
read the box notes and you click
Yes.
comment and you comment on them if you have, so that's kind of in that intro there. but
Right.
You can just add a comment to that and then that comment is also publicly available. If you email that comment, everybody on the board, and then A, then it's, somebody's got to request it, and B, then it has to go to legal for redaction, and every thread has to go through legal for redaction. So this is not efficient, so that's why we utilize the comment portion of the box notes for that type of thing. That said, sometimes, as Mr. Wong, very grateful that he did this, he sent me a message and kind of said, I want to understand this better, which I think that's the distinction. I was able to answer him as an individual and explain it better, and then, he may or may not.
being equipped currently. All 40 floors. We had bid acceptance. And we're going to send that out for bid. 2,300 square foot greenhouse and 2,800 square foot maintenance barn.